Myanmar's military has lifted its state of emergency declared in February 2021 after a coup that removed the elected civilian government. Another step that clears the ground for an election at the end of this year. With the lifting of the state of emergency, the military nominally transfers power to a civilian interim government headed by the military chief. Aung Hlaing remains acting president. He will also head a newly created commission overseeing national security and the conduct of those upcoming polls. The military yesterday announcing the enactment of a law meting out prison sentences for anyone carrying out protests that the military deems as disrupting the electoral process. Opposition groups, meantime, have pledged to boycott those upcoming polls. And more CNA's Leong Wai Kit joins us live for more on this development out of Myanmar. Wai Kit, Military Chief Aung Hlaing remains as acting president. He is also head of these two positions that he has created, this commission as well as this government. So for Myanmar people who might have expected any change coming out of any new announcements, has anything changed for them?
Well, the quick answer is, if you look at it, it's very easy for you to describe these changes as cosmetic changes, a case of musical chairs, if you will, moving personnel around, creating new roles, and at the end of the day, still allowing Army Chief Aung Hlaing to be in full control of the country. But I must point out that this is not the first time that the Myanmar authorities have created roles, powerful roles, to work around things. If you recall, back in Ms. Aung San Suu Kyi's administration, she created the role of state councillor. Now, that's because under Myanmar's constitution, anyone with a foreign spouse is not allowed to be president. Now, that law is largely seen as targeting her, but she went around it by creating the state councillor role, which rules above the president. Now, Aung Hlaing's role is designed to be even more powerful than the state councillor. And you can see the strategy behind it. He's given up on being a prime minister. That's a civilian role. As you said, Wei Su, he's now still acting president. He is in charge of the country's defense as well as security issues, and that gives him wide-ranging powers. And most important of all, he retains firepower as military chief. Now, the army pushes out all these structures, procedures, and it speaks to its mindset. It wants to tell the world that its actions are justified and that its actions are legitimized.
Oh, Wai Kit, these structures, these new titles, they might work around some issues, but Myanmar cannot get around the problem, as we have frequently discussed, ongoing civil war. And it wants to hold elections by December this year. How is that? How is it going to be making it possible, laying the ground for free and fair and transparent elections?
That is the magic question, because everybody whom I speak to cannot find it in their hearts to believe that there will be free and fair elections because of the conditions that have arisen in the last 4 years. If you look at what has happened since the coup, it appears that the Myanmar army is paving the way to make its opponents at a disadvantage. It has introduced rules and laws to make it difficult for political parties to take part in the elections. It has changed the electoral system. And as you've said earlier, Wei Su, it has also recently introduced a law that disallows people from boycotting the elections. Earlier, when I was covering the ASEAN foreign ministers meeting, Malaysia chair had said that it's very difficult for the bloc to accept the polls if not everybody participates in it. Now, I'm told that the elections will take place sometime between December 26 and January 6 in the following year. Now, earlier, I had also prepared a story to contextualize the state of emergency in Myanmar as well as the upcoming elections. Let's take a listen to that story. Myanmar's been in a state of emergency since the February 1st, 2021 coup. Now, that emergency has been extended multiple times, each time with the military citing legality under the country's constitution. That's the 2008 constitution, drafted by the military itself. It's the same constitution that ousted State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi once tried to amend before she was removed from power. Despite condemnation from the Myanmar people and the world, the junta insists its actions are lawful and justified. Now, this reveals a key aspect of how it sees the world. One, it marches to its own beat by following its own rules. Two, it believes those rules are rooted in reason. Take the 5-point consensus. In April 2021, Army Chief Aung Hlaing agreed with ASEAN leaders that this framework would guide the crisis response. But soon after, the army backed away from those commitments. It introduced its own framework, the 5-point peace plan, with a focus on holding elections and restoring order, but on its terms. So, in its eyes, the army is working towards peace, just not the ASEAN version of it. This mindset informs how the State Administration Council, or SAC, views the upcoming elections.
The SAC's projected elections as an exit ramp of sorts. And that is tied with, I think, bringing up past parallels of viewing elections as this transition or, exit ramp for the military towards some kind of civilianized administration. But researchers, analysts have been commenting and cautioning that what happened with the 2010 elections and the transition that happened afterwards is not something that's directly replicable in the current situation in 2025.
As of now, it's clear the conditions aren't ripe for elections. Myanmar remains in armed conflict. Reports suggest the military controls less than half of the country. And there's still the possibility that the elections, already delayed, could be postponed again.
And of course, if you hark back to statements by the State Administration Council since 2021, elections were sort of set or proposed for 1 year after the military seized power. So that was in 2021, so 1 year meant 2022, then it became pushed back to 2023, and so on and so forth. So I think that's also something that we need to bear in mind.
ASEAN still does not have a unified position on Myanmar's planned polls. There is no confirmation on whether the bloc will send an election observer to the country if the polls were to be held. There is also no official way to assess whether a vote is free or fair, especially if only parts of the country participate. Earlier, I spoke with one Myanmar expert who has a different take on the elections.
Another question that people are concerning is whether the election will worsen the conflict on the ground. I say not necessarily, because we are already at the full-fledged civil war. The intensity of the conflict in the quantitative ways are not going to change.
So here's what we're looking at. The polls, if held, will be seen by the army as a way out of the crisis. The military's narrative is based on rules and rationality, at least in its own view. But this raises a key question. How will Myanmar's immediate neighbours, China, Thailand, as well as regional actors like ASEAN respond? Will they see the Myanmar army's quest for legitimacy as a bridge to progress or a barrier to democracy?